Dakle, sljedeći gost je Milios, koji je profesor političke ekonomije i istorije ekonomske misli u Atini. I on je napisao sijaset dobrih knjiga, između ostalog koautorstvo o Marksu, onda jednu knjigu o imperijalizmu, među ostalima, sada ne nabrajam njegove bitne knjige. Ali ono što čini se ovdje pomalo nedostaje, to je ipak da on reprezentuje kombinaciju između onoga što je malo čas istaknuto kao neka vrsta problema, znači spoj između teorije i prakse, odnosno pokušaj da se prevazilazi taj gap, taj zid koji izrasta između teorije i prakse. So thank you for your coming, and please.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. It's a very good opportunity to be here and be able to know you and discuss with you, and I hope that this will be the start of a relationship and a connection that it is going to last. I want to discuss first of all my opinion, to present to you my opinion about the crisis and the significance that the austerity policies have for the ruling classes. The way I see austerity policies is that we shall consider them as class politics which aims at reshuffling the relation of forces in our society, in changing the character of the societies, in with one word, in lowering the price of the labor force, and in doing this by the method of the absolute surplus value. That is, the ruling classes have seen that the relation of class forces allows them to treat the crisis as a chance in order to further embed and put forward neoliberal policies which were their plan in the last 2 decades in any case. So let me start from the crisis. I think that it's important to comprehend that we live in a systemic crisis, because this crisis has hit the core of the neoliberal organization of the capitalist system, since it has hit the financial sector and the financial system. The financial system is not a mere sphere of gambling or of speculation. Of course, there is speculation, and there is more speculation than the speculation that can be in steel industries or in ship industries and so on. But much more than this, it's a mechanism of moving the economy, that is, creating what the economy needs, which is money. The main form of money is credit money, as there has to be a system of projecting present values to the future, and a system of estimating the gains of the future now. And also the financial sphere is a sphere of evaluating risk. When the capitalist wants to put forward an investment, any entrepreneurial project, this project has a risk. and he has to have a capital market which evaluates these risks and gives him or her opportunities to put forward the project, the plan. This whole network of risk evaluation makes commensurable gains of very different form. Gains from a loan to a state in South Africa, or from buying shares of Hyundai, or for extending a company in Russia. All these risks are being evaluated by the internationalized financial system and are evaluated in dollars or in any other international currency in terms of the interest rate. The interest rate is an index of this evaluation of the risk. If a project is evaluated as a project of low risk, then this project has more chances, and the entrepreneur complies with the regularities of the system in order to have these results. This has always been so in the capitalist system. This is not new. We can imagine that if we lived in the era of William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe, and we had the Jew of Malta and the trader, the merchant of Venice, then the merchant of Venice was going to buy silk, let's say, for North Africa in order to sell it in Venice, in Hamburg, in other European cities, in Istanbul, but he was given some securities because he didn't want to carry the money in the ship from the Jew of Malta, that is the banker. The Jew of Malta could come to him and say, look, my friends, I risk my money with your ship, so please be careful. You start your journey every time in February. In February we have very bad weather. There are storms in the sea. You take cruise from Venice, and in Venice the sailors demand very high wages, and also I have heard they have twice stopped your ship at several ports demanding to be paid and not to have arrears with their wages. This is not a good story. And third, I hear that you buy your silk from Cairo near the Tahrir square, where, as I hear, big demonstrations take place. So I cannot lend you money anymore with an interest rate of 6%. I have to raise it to 10%. I am sorry, we are very good friends, but I risk my money. If you understand that this merchant is going to go to the crew and say, look, guys, we are all in a ship. We have a common interest. If the ship goes down, then we are all dead. If the ship cannot sail, then we are all poor. So I have to lower your wages. Second, anyone who strikes will be fired. And you know something, I have the opportunity to man the ship with crews coming from Padova, where wages are 25% lower. Also, we are going to start every April, so don't expect me to pay you for February and March. In March, we are going to sail on the 1st of April. And third, we are going to buy our silk from another company in Morocco. The trip will be longer, but never mind, we cannot do. The situation is very difficult. The banker is a very cruel guy. All bankers and Jews, you know, they are terrible, they are antichrists and so on. So I cannot give you more wages, higher wages. We are going to go to Morocco, but this antichrist, this bad man, the Jew, this foreigner, forces us to do so with the same wage. So this example shows that we have a system, a financial system, which puts rules to what mainstream economists describe as the real economy. Of course, the Jew of Malta and every banker is exactly as real as the merchant of Venice. The merchant of Venice cannot exist without the Jew of Malta. The conflict between them is real, but is secondary compared to their common goal. And their common goal is to foresee the future as a future of stable earnings, that is, of profitability, of surplus value, extraction, and so on. If you read Marx, you will see that capitalism is not a system of surplus product extraction. This is not enough, because every system is a system of surplus product extraction. Slavery, the feudal system, the Asiatic mode of production, everything. Capitalism is a system where money creates more money, valorizes by itself, and it valorizes in the way that I described with the simplistic example of the merchant of Venice and the Jew of Malta. If we have this system globalized, if we have a mechanism of debt creation, of loans, that has to do not with the banks, but practically with everybody, if we have a system with every medium or big company can create its own bonds and get loans by banks, hedge funds, mutual funds, wealthy pensioners, everybody. If you consider that the money of the mutual funds are the money of the pension funds, of medium income mechanics or engineers or doctors and so on, then you have the present situation and the liberalization of markets created by neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is a system in which this predominance of the financial sector has reached a very high level, is globalized, and it has become a form of governing things, governing the lives of people, the way the states work, the way the public institutions work, the hospitals work, even the way that people study, since in many cases we have student loans and so on, credit cards, everything. So this whole system came to a crisis, to a very severe crisis, and the crisis was systemic because it seemed to create an inability or a difficulty for the expanded reproduction of the whole system, as it were, after the crisis of 2007, 2008, after the collapse of Lehman Brothers. And finally, we have a situation where the ruling classes are in a position to try to overcome this crisis in an homeopathic way, that is, by further embedding the neoliberal agenda, by using fear and the shock doctrine of putting the picture in front of the middle classes that you may lose everything, that there are now many thousands of people who look for their necessities, if not for their food, in the garbage, and this is something that can happen to you, to terrorize the middle classes and the until recently stable strata of the working classes, in order to put forward policies which seemed to be impossible several years ago. Policies like firing civil servants, lowering wages by 30 and 40%, creating an unemployment which is more than 25% in Western countries like Greece, Spain, etc., and also sending large parts of the population abroad. In Ireland, the population is 4,500,000, 4.5 million, and the people who have migrated are around 330,000, mostly young people, due to the fact that they speak English, that there is a very influential community of Irish people in the United States, people of Irish origin in the United States, and that there is North Ireland in Britain. We have this enormous immigration of engineers, doctors, lawyers, skilled workers, and so on. The situation in Greece is not so acute concerning immigration. We have only 120,000 people out of 11 million who have immigrated, but the unemployment rates are considerably higher compared to those of Ireland. 28% in Greece right now, 16 or 17% in Ireland. So we have policies which create a recession, but at the same time create a very enormous redistribution of wealth and power. And we have to recognize that there is no other way to create this enormous redistribution of wealth and power to the favor of big capital, but by recession. There are people who say this is an unrealistic and irrational policy, because if you kill demand, then you are going to suppress the ability of the whole production mechanism to produce, and you are going to enter a vicious cycle of austerity, less demand, less product, more austerity, because if the GDP is going down, then the debt ratio, that is the public debt as percentage of the GDP, is going to be up. The state revenue from taxes and so on will be lower. Then it will be the need for more wage cuts, for more dismantling even more the welfare state and so on, and this is going to lead to nowhere. But this is a wrong way to see things. there is no other way to push the small entrepreneur or even the big capitalist to follow this class strategy, which determines individuals, and it's not simply a decision of some individuals around the table. Of course, it's a decision of some prime minister, members of the elite, and so on, but it becomes a policy which goes everywhere. It is very difficult to give the power or to convince any entrepreneur to stop paying wages for months, to lower the wages, to fire half of the personnel, and so on, until you bring him or her to the brink of bankruptcy. It's impossible, but by pushing the enterprise to the limit. So, recession is creative distraction, if I am allowed to use a phrase from Joseph Schumpeter. For the plan of capitalism as it is right now, for the strategy of embedding and further promoting the plan of the neoliberal reconstruction of all societies, austerity is the measure and recession is the field where these policies can be cultivated. We are then in a situation that is not going to stop, according to my opinion, unless it is being stopped. In other societies, like the Chinese society, or in societies of Latin America, we have those types of policies and those results. I mean historical, not right now. That is, in China or in other parts of Asia, we have a worker who has minimum rights, and in many cases no rights, who works for more than 10 hours a day and simply survives, who is being moved from one part of the country to the other, and in places like Brazil or Argentina and so on, or Mexico, we have large parts of the society, 30, 40%, 45%, who live at the margin of the society, who do not have electric energy, unless they climb the pillar of the electric company, and with the danger of their life they connect how it is called, they connect their house with the pillar of the carrying the electric energy in order to have light in their house. Illegally. Unless they do this, they don't have light. We have large parts of society which live marginalized in the so-called favelas, the slums, and it can be a capitalism which develops with 2, 3, 4, 5, 11%, as in China, with a situation of large parts of the population, that is hundreds of millions, under the limit of poverty, with any definition of this limit of poverty. So, what is happening in Europe right now is that they are building the white Chinese worker in Europe. They are trying to construct this new figure of the white Asiatic worker in Europe. That is, don't take it with the racial context of the word, take it with the social, a worker with no rights, with no limits, with no abilities to resist to the capitalist, a society without a welfare state, a society which does not have the responsibility to keep citizens alive through public health care and so on. That is what is happening. That does not have to do with North and South, primarily with North and South, with Germany and Greece and so on. It's a plan which goes everywhere. In Germany now there are at least 10 million of underpaid workers who live at the margin that is around the limit of poverty, with very little, with very low purchasing power and very low ability to bargain with their entrepreneurs. So austerity has been a plan for all the capitalist world. And there is no other way to reverse things than to create strong movements, to fight for change. But in the recent conjuncture we have seen something which is new, at least for Western Europe. We have seen enormous mobilizations of people, very big strikes in several sectors or in the whole economy, which create no result. That is, we have seen governments which continue these policies and make these policies even more severe without taking into consideration the demand of the people. This is a new situation and a very peculiar one. Maybe it's an unstable situation because it has to do with consensus. That is, the traditional mechanisms of creating consensus, which was trade unionism, elections, the ability of the workers to bargain, the strength of a general strike and so on, seem not to work anymore. This, on the one hand, shows a government or a political power which has the strength to go on without changing the plan. On the other hand, a political power like this, which is not being legitimized by the acceptance of the broader population, is a very dangerous thing, a thing which leads to police states or to practices which resemble a police state. We have a very rapid increase of police and political oppression. We have some new practices which use illegitimate violence in order to supposedly to legitimize policies which are supposed to be legitimate because they have been voted by the majority in the parliament. That is, we are living in a transitory period which is very interesting from the perspective of the results that it can create. In this framework, I think that we can explain very different things, like the movement Occupy Wall Street, which was something very new and very strong for the political situation we have new in the United States, and the very big mobilizations in the squares of all the cities in Spain, Greece and elsewhere, the movement of the squares. In the case of Greece, we have an additional result. We have, as a continuation of the mobilizations on the squares, a radical change of the political scene in Greece. And because, you know, the Greeks shall not be considered as the special people of God or something like that, what happened in Greece can happen anywhere. And I think that we can see traces of this change in many other countries. First of all, the ability of the ruling elites, the ruling classes and the political system to continue to go on with these policies despite the big mobilizations was based on the effects of the shock doctrine, that is, of the fact that they have deliberately created an insolvency situation, that is a situation where the Greek state was not able to borrow anymore from the markets. This is a situation which characterizes many countries in the European Union right now. We have a debt problem in the Eurozone, which is mainly an insolvency problem due to the structure of the Eurozone, but the case of Greece shows that this situation, insolvency, and the debt problem is a deliberate policy which aims at initiating the shock doctrine. We had elections in 2009. The Socialist Party under George Papandreou was elected. Papandreou won the elections on the basis of a moderate Keynesian agenda, saying that if we cut wages, if we cut the welfare state, we are going to create recession, and so the problem will be worse and worse. That's why I promise that there are going to be no wage cuts and that we are going to further promote the welfare state. As soon as he was elected, he did not borrow from the markets. At that time, he could borrow at least to 20 billion euros with very, very low interest rates. And he started talking about the Titanic, saying that the Greek economy is the Titanic, and about corruption and thieves. Practically all Greeks were corrupted, all civil servants were thieves, and something should be done which should be very radical. The something was the program signed under the title Memorandum of Understanding with the Troika, which was the IMF, the European Union and the Central Bank. And a bailout program was agreed under the conditionality of strict austerity. This was the start. What is important in our case is that very big demonstrations started, which were at the beginning of the classical style type. That is, trade unions, even the corrupt or politically corrupt trade unions of the system, where many thousands of people participated. After some time, because this type of mobilization led to nowhere, we had an imitation of the Spanish case. We had very large concentration of people on the squares. We are talking about mobilizations of 500,000 people in a country of 11 million. In Athens, in a city of 3 million, 1 out of 6 citizens were on the square. These mobilizations overthrew 2 governments. First, the November government, without elections, who could not stand the pressure from the people, who could not stand the fact that the people were hit by the police and were continuing, and resigned in favor of a coalition government of all of the 2 major parties of the time, which were the conservatives and the socialists, and prime minister as a banker as the prime minister. This was a government of a very big parliamentary majority, and because the situation created by the press was that now we have national unity, now all together we are going to lose, to resolve our problems, we had the extreme right party, which was at the time the Laos party, which at the time was a party of the Le Pen style, a party which resembled the Front National of France. We had this party also participate in the government. So we had a government supported by 240 MPs out of 300, which was going to follow the correct mainstream policies which are being followed all over Europe, which is austerity under the advice of the Troika in order to bring the country out of the crisis. The mobilizations continued, and on the 12th of December of 12th of February of 2012, that is before 15 months or 16 months, we had such big demonstrations, which were where the people of all kinds and of all ages were fighting with the police for hours until late midnight, starting from 6 o'clock in the afternoon, that this government resigned, and a new elections took part in May of 2012. They said that we are going to resign in a short time, and we had the new elections. Then the political situation changed very rapidly, and we had the practical collapse of the Socialist Party in May from 44% to 13%, practical collapse. The diminution of the Conservative Party, despite the fact that the Conservative Party was saying that we are against austerity and the Socialists are liars, and we knew it from the beginning, and that's why we never talked about austerity, from 34% to 19%, and we had one small party, which was Syriza, from 4.6% to 17%. Whereas the Communist Party, which was the big power of the left at that time, practically did not increase its power from 7.5 to 8.5. That is, it gained only a little in this very peculiar situation. Also, we had the appearance of a Nazi party, which was a traditional small Nazi group in Greece, from 0.29% to 7%, the Nazi party. These elections could not form a government because Syriza, the left party, did not agree to make a coalition with the other parties. They demanded a coalition. And we had new elections in June, where the Conservative Party went from 19% to 29.67%, Syriza from 17 to 25, that is, lost the election by only a little, PASOK from 13 to 12, the fascists remained at 7% with a very small loss in their percentage, and the small parties became even smaller, the smaller parties. And of course the Communist Party from 8.5 to 4.5. I think that we can draw a conclusion from this situation. This situation shows that even in cases where we have the extreme enforcement of neoliberal politics and authoritarian politics, where the government does not take into consideration any demand of the people, despite demonstrations, analysis of intellectuals or institutions and so on, and goes on with these policies, elections can be seen by the people as a way out. I think that the Greek people have created a political path, a political way out, which can be used wherever elections are going to take place again in the country. The parties which won the elections, because now we had, after this June 2012 election, we had a government of three parties, the Conservatives, the Socialists, and a split from the left, the so-called Democratic Left, a small party. Now they have a government of only two parties, the Conservatives and the Socialists, because there was another crisis. They only have 153 MPs out of 300. Whenever elections take place, a change can be made, and that's why their program in these last elections were a moderate way out of austerity. Of course, when they were elected, they continued with the same program, and they have brought new measures, and they are still bringing new measures and cutting wages and firing civil servants and dismantling the welfare state and the health care and everything, the higher education, everything. The polls show that Syriza now is the first party. In 2014, that is in a few months, in 6 months, we are going to have European elections. This is something like a referendum. That is, people vote for parties, and if there is a big difference between the major opposition, which is the first party, and the coalition parties of the government, then there is going to be a problem. In any case, there is a problem right now, because there is still some unrest, and there is always a question of elections before the end of the 4-year period. So the question is, do we need a left government? Which means, can a left government help change things? Is it what happened in the past with the social democratic parties is going to happen again in the future? That is, any government which has an alternative program speaks of change, speaks of socialism and communism in the sense of egalitarianism and of social needs, in the sense of the spirit of the European and World Forum, people before profits and so on, cannot do anything. Was Margaret Thatcher correct when she was saying there is no alternative? We answer to this question as Syriza that this is not a correct way to approach things. It's a very difficult battle that a left government has before it. No battle can be won for sure, and we cannot know if we can win. This is correct, but we have to give this battle. And we see this battle not as a way to save capitalism or more to save neoliberalism, but as an opposition to the state, to capital, to the ruling classes and the prevailing capitalist relations, not only from below, but also from above. That is, we see that through a left government we can open roads for people to participate, for forms of direct government, for people's and workers' initiatives to change things. If we have a model in our minds, is the model of some countries of of Latin America in their good years or days, like the case of Chavez in Venezuela or Morales and so on, where a left government spoke about the socialism of the 21st century, meaning that it is going to be a power of the people which is going to challenge all forms of hierarchy, power and so on, putting forward social needs and the decisions of the people. We think that this idea is getting strength also in the parties in the other parties which comprise the party of the European left, because Syriza is part of the so-called European left party, that is the Linke Front, the Popular Front in France, the Communist Party of some countries, or the Socialist and Green Party in others in Europe, which all form the European left party. We believe that a change on that top level, a change of government, which will be successful, that is, it's going to be to bring to the fore the demands and the mobilizations of the people for changing the policy. It's going to affect all other countries in Europe. There are small examples, like the one in Iceland, where the people, through referendums, through mobilizations and so on, have achieved some things. For example, not to pay the debt in the Dutch and British banks in Iceland. So we think that our plan, if it is supported by the people, can be realistic. It's a plan to stop austerity, to fight against the humane catastrophe which starts evolving in the country. We have more than 20,000 people who live without a home, homeless people in Athens right now, and this is growing. We have a lot of unemployed people. We have a plan of what we call social economy, which means not programs for the youth and so on, but immediately to bring together the unemployed with idle means of production, either private or public, in order to create jobs and incomes on communal or cooperative base, that is with no or less hierarchy, with cooperation with other communities and so on. And we are not going to continue with that program of bailout as it is right now. We are going to demand a renegotiation of the debt, that is a haircut of a very big part of it, on the basis of what has happened in the past with Germany in the year 1953, after the first decade after the Second World War. It's clear that they are going to say no. We don't have any illusions. The question is that what does this no mean, and for how long they are going to say no. From the first day we plan to change the rules. We are going to raise the minimum wage again to where it was before the crisis, that is to 751 euros per month, from 580 that it is right now. And we are going to recreate the agency which inspects and overlooks the working conditions, so that this minimum wage will be real. We are sure that this is going to create a new climate in the whole society. Of course, it is going to be a burden for the small enterprise, but the small enterprise now has much more burdens than the wage burden. Greece is a capital-intensive country. It does not, the economy does not belong on the level of the wage, and austerity is only a means of changing the whole relation of forces, not of cutting some unnecessary costs. We think also, and this is the final point I want to make, that if all these things become public, not only in Greece but all over Europe, that is what is being discussed in closed doors and in closed rooms becomes open to the press and the public. If the new left government, in case we win the next elections, informs the German and the French people, and the French and the German and the Danish trade unions, and the left people and progressive people of what is happening, given the fact that the debt problem and the austerity problem is a pan-European problem right now, things may change. We do not conceive the crisis or the euro crisis as a problem between Greece and Germany. We don't think that the problems of Greece are created by Germany. We have all the evidence that the measures which comprise the Memorandum of Understanding are given to the people of the Troika by some of the top law offices in Athens, which law offices represent the major companies, multinational companies of Greek ownership, and also of non-Greek owners. We have all the evidence that this class policy, which is exactly the same as in Portugal, in Spain, in Italy, is going to go on until we stop them. So we have to give this fight, and I think that we will be on the safe side of the combat, of the fight with you and with a large number of the Serbian and former Yugoslavian people, as well as the Russian people, because as we discussed before, austerity is a problem all over Europe. It's a policy that has to do with all the countries, and we have to fight it in each and every country. Thank you.